Hi there, we're going to get started. My name is Susan Lemke. I'm the Program Manager for Math and Science. And tonight presenting with us, we have Hillary Lewis. She's our elementary math coach. Diana Ramirez, another elementary math coach. And in the hallway, who'll be coming in a minute, is Peta Gay Robinson, and she's our secondary math coach. A couple of quick announcements. The entire presentation is being recorded and will be uploaded to the district website probably by the end of the week. When you go to the district website, there's little quick links, and it'll say math homepage. Click on that, and then you'll be able to see the whole presentation. So if you know people who were not able to come, they can look at it and they'll get the exact same information. The other thing is because it is recorded, if you can turn off your cell phones for us or silence them so they don't go off in the middle of the presentation. Again, you don't have to take any pictures, you can. All of this is slideshows up there right now. So tonight we have some goals. The first is that you understand the instructional shifts in mathematics, so you understand why it is that the math pathways are designed the way that they are and some of the requirements for that. We also are going to go over the logistics of the 6th grade math placement test, and finally we'll look at Fremont's secondary math pathways. And so to get us started, I'm going to bring it to Hillary.
I hate math. I'm not good at math. My child is just not very good at math. It's no surprise because I was never very good at math. These statements are all too common among adults. We accept them. Somehow it seems reasonable to be content with low math skills, biologically determined even. But why is that? What would happen if I were to swap the word math out with the word reading? I hate reading. I'm not very good at reading. My child is just not very good at reading. It's no surprise because I was never very good at reading. As adults, would we ever say anything like this? Would we allow ourselves to be content saying that our children weren't good at reading? We encourage the joy and love of reading. Why not for math too? Yet we graduate too many students who hate math or say they aren't good at math. This is a problem that we're trying to change in Fremont. Many of us have had traditional math instruction that has focused on memorizing procedures. We were never given the chance to develop the love for problem solving and thinking flexibly when working with numbers. Some of our parents may have had low math expectations for us that we are now passing on to our children. Or some of us were pushed too fast through math classes that left us feeling inadequate and fearing math. And now we are doing the same to our children. Very few of us left high school loving math and wanting to pursue more in college. In early grades, our kids get to play with numbers. They love math. It's still fun for them. They do well at both in standardized tests and performance-based testing. But as they grow older, they have fewer opportunities to play with numbers. They love math less and feel pressured to keep pushing on even if they don't understand what was taught previously. They have learned that math is something they need to just get through. Our students need to learn that math should make sense and is fun. What do we really want for our children when it comes to math instruction? AP calculus as soon as possible, or a lifelong love? Or a lifelong love of doing math like we want for them for reading. But your child might be great at math, so none of this may seem relevant to you. Let's look at some data, because this is about math. Here we have some statistics about calculus. As we look at that green line, we see that calculus enrollment in high school has gone up over time. My first thought is, this is great. We're creating more mathematicians. However, when we look at the other information, we get another picture. The blue and red dots show, or the points there show the students who are taking calculus in college. And when we look at those lines, what do we see? We see stagnation. We see students who are not compelled to continue their study of higher math beyond high school. With the increase of the numbers of students interested in taking calculus in high school, one would think we'd see that continue into college. But then we wondered, okay, maybe those kids who took calculus in high school did really well and didn't retake it in college. They're going on to math-intensive majors. They're going on to higher math. We have more data. Here we see numbers of students majoring in math-intensive subjects. Again, stagnation. With the dramatic increase in the numbers of students taking calculus in high school, we think we would see more students pursuing math-intensive majors in college, but we're not seeing it. What's happening? Although our kids are taking up more math, higher math earlier, we're not creating lovers of math. They're not continuing their mathematics education. We are working to change that here in Fremont. Okay, so how does that affect our sixth graders? The research and higher ed are saying the same thing. Faster is not better. In Fremont Unified, our goal is to create lifelong lovers of math where students are not overly stressed. For example, we would never ask our 7th graders to read 11th grade literature. What we strive for is a well-matched placement. Students are appropriately challenged and not overly stressed out. Students do not have to take calculus in high school to continue on to higher ed in math. And Diana's going to talk to us about how we determine that placement.
Alrighty, so I will be talking about testing dates and placement criteria. So that is also in the handout that you have on the second page, so you can take notes. So the testing window is March 27th through April 7th. Students will be taking the test in their classroom. It will consist of 2 parts. Each part is 45 minutes each time, so there's 45 minutes each session. They will have, it'll be given in one day with a break in between, or 2 separate days. That will be dependent on how the teacher wants to conduct the testing. If you want to know that, then you'll have to consult your teacher or your school site. And every student takes the test unless you opt them out. The test is covering standards units in their springboard curriculum, unit 1 through 4, the standards that are in there. So it's important to understand that the test addresses application of the content. What does that mean? If we are testing standards, not the springboard curriculum. There aren't any practice tests available. Students who know their math concepts at a deep level will be able to do well on the test. And students who just memorize enough to pass assessments and assignments in the classroom, they're going to struggle with this test. The test addresses the application of standards in novel situations that your child may have seen or may have not seen before. And they're required to apply their knowledge and skills to predictable and unpredictable real-world situations. Oh, let me go back. I think I missed it. Yep, 20 questions each. Each section is 20 questions each. It's done paper and pencil. Part 1 is your traditional multiple choice with one answer possible. Part 2 is a non-traditional multiple choice and has a choice with multiple answers possible. We will be looking at multiple measures to determine the proper placement of your child. The 6th grade placement test, which is this test that I'm talking about right now. The SBAC 5th grade math scores, if they're available. Some people don't have that, or some students do not have that. And then 6th grade district mid-year assessment. The students have just finished that a couple of weeks ago in their classroom. And their 6th grade report card grade. All students will be notified via mail of their placement by the end of May. So we'll use all these criteria in order to place your child in the proper class. Now I'm going to turn it over to Peta, who will explain the math pathways. And we will give you lots of opportunity to ask questions at the very end.
Okay, so once placement is determined, your child will be in one of two places, either the on-grade level CC2 class or the accelerated CC2 GFA, which stands for Geometry and Foundational Algebra. Going through junior high, getting passing grades in each class. If you're in CC2, you'll go on to GFA in 8th grade. And if you're in the accelerated class, you'll go on to GFA Algebra 1 in the 8th grade. Okay. If you're in the grade level class, you are on path to be in a UC qualified program. So you'll do CC2 in 7th grade, GFA in 8th grade, Algebra 1 in 9th grade, Geometry in 10th grade, Algebra 2 Trigonometry in 11th grade, and Pre-Calculus in 12th grade. For the students that are on the accelerated pathway, making sure that they pass the course with at least a B or higher. So CC2 GFA in 7th grade, GFA Algebra 1 in 8th grade. If they continue on that pathway, they'll do Geometry in 9th grade, Algebra 2 Trig in 10th grade, Pre-Calculus in 11th, and AP Cal or Calculus in the 12th grade. If at the end of 8th grade, they have the high grade and have the requirements needed to do another acceleration, they can choose to go on to the Geometry Algebra 2 Trig as freshmen, Algebra 2 Trig Pre-Cal as sophomores, and do AP Cal or Calculus in the 11th grade. And in 12th grade, choose to do statistics or some other math class that's available at their school. Now, for those of you who wonder if my child didn't make it into the accelerated program based on their 6th grade placement test and the other criteria that's required to get them into junior high, if they're in CC2 and are doing very well and meet the requirements, we have a summer bridge program for them to take the part of the accelerated class they would have missed not being in the accelerated class, which is the GFA. And during the summer program, it's sufficient enough time for them to get all the material they would have missed at just the GFA portion. And if they successfully pass that program in summer between 7th and 8th grade, then they can be in the GFA Algebra 1 class in 8th grade and continue on the rest of the pathway that we just talked about. If they don't do it in junior high, they'll have another opportunity after they've taken Algebra 1 in 9th grade. And if at that time they have the grades needed and have the ability to get onto the accelerated pathway, then they could take the Geometry Algebra 2 Trig as 10th graders, the Algebra 2 Trig Pre-Cal as 11th graders, and the AP Cal or Calculus as seniors. For the students who don't necessarily want to take the accelerated path for this, After Algebra 1 in 9th grade, they can, as 10th graders, if they have the grades that's sufficient enough to have them do this, can take geometry and Algebra 2 trig simultaneously. They will take off their PE that year so that they can do it as a senior instead. And they will take 2 full-year math courses. Now, the reason they can do that is because the prerequisite for both geometry and Algebra 2 trigonometry is Algebra 1. And they're not dependent on each other to be successful in the courses. So if they do that, then as 10th graders, if they take both, then they'll take pre-cal as 11th grade and then do AP Cal or Calculus as seniors. College requirements.
Okay, so PETA showed you the secondary math pathways. The point here of showing you this is that in order for students to get into a UC or a California State University, they need to have 3 years of math. One of those has to be Algebra 1. But either pathway, any of these pathways that we've shown you, will get them UC qualified. So part of the point here to show you is that yes, this is when we're going to be giving that 6th grade math placement test within the next month, and you have the window for that. But we don't want kids to be overly stressed out about it because there's a bunch of different ways that they can get to that AP Calculus if that's the goal, if that's your student's goal. If your kid is feeling overwhelmed and stressed out about this test, one of the things that happens is they freeze up and they have to take that test. And then they're overwhelmed and upset, and they feel like they let everybody down. So we want to communicate that there's a lot of different ways to get there. There's that first placement test that will get them into the accelerated program. This gets them into a UC. It can get them into a STEM program at a UC or a CSU. It will not get them into a STEM program at MIT or Harvard. That's true, but that's okay. Not every student needs to go there. They can do really well and get into a STEM program with this pathway. Or if they can do the summer bridge opportunity. Or the other opportunity is right here. If they can't go at that same fast rate for the accelerated, then this taking a second elective is another way to get them to the AP Calculus. Now, one of the things that we haven't mentioned is that in previous years, we allowed students to skip math classes. So that was the way that a lot of kids got to AP Calculus, is they skipped a math class in 7th grade or 8th grade. But the problem with that was that they then had these gaps in their learning. And Hillary mentioned that when they got to higher math classes like AP Calculus or pre-calculus, there were these gaps that were frustrating for students. They couldn't master the curriculum, and then they felt like math isn't a subject that I'm good at, and I want to drop out of it. I don't want to pursue it. So we're setting it up so that it's a good match so that students learn their math at a deep level. The accelerated class is a compaction of courses, and we can go to this slide or back here to look at that. So if we look at this, again, this is the 7th grade class and half of the 8th grade class. Same book, they're covering all those standards, and they're still expected to cover them at a very deep level, to know them conceptually. And then here, they're taking the other half of their 8th grade geometry foundational algebra, and all of that freshman year Algebra 1 class, all compacted together. So not all kids can learn their math that quickly. They need a little bit more time to work on it. So that's why we have this other opportunity right here for students to, if they love math, they want to study math, they want to go into, or a physical science, they want to get to AP Calculus, here's a way that they don't have to go at that really fast pace at that same level of depth. Okay, questions? Yes?
Some of these
I'm gonna
bridge,
give you this.
some of the bridge courses that you have, are there any specific requirements for them?
So in order to qualify for the summer bridge for going from 7th grade to 8th grade, the students need to have an A- in their class, so 90% or better, and they need to have 90% or better average on all of their assessments. Then when we have a list of students, we don't have enough space to offer it to every student who qualifies, so we give one last kind of placement test. And all the students who meet the criteria will be invited. And then PETA and I went to all the school sites and gave this test. And then we took the top 70 students, so 35 students, 2 sections for the summer program.
How many total were taking the test?
You say that there were 70 students who were able to take that class. How many were interested?
I think there were about 100 students who were interested. And we were only able to, very hard to hire math teachers for the summer. So we hire as many as we can, and we're able to offer 2 sections.
Where does that happen? At the school site or?
The question was, where does that happen? And the test will happen at the school site. But the summer bridge class itself is going to be at the summer school program, and that will be at Centerville Junior High School. And it will start June 26th and go through July 27th. And classes Monday through Thursday, no school on Fridays, except for the week of 4th of July. But if you think that your student's going to qualify, and if that's your intention for your student, if they don't, this would be the following year. This won't be this year for you if you have a 6th grade. Then you'd want to hold off on making your summer plans until you found out, or schedule your plans at the end of the summer if you do have a 7th grader. Other questions?
And would the criteria be the same for the 10th grade as well?
Her question was, is the criteria for the 10th grade, are you talking about this?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
this, they just need to have an A in their class. They're not looking at the benchmark scores. And then if a student is close to an A but doesn't have a strong A, then it's principal discretion. So you need to ask your counselor, ask your principal about that. Other questions?
2 questions. One of them is you mentioned the placement criteria, and you gave a list of them. How is that used? Is it a weighting system or?
Yeah, we kind of weighted. It's not. What I will tell you is that his question was about how do we weight the criteria for getting into the accelerated class. The 2 most important parts are the 6th grade math placement test, because those are objective. Those are asking students, here's your 6th grade math standards. Can you apply them to a situation that you've never seen before? Those are completely objective. Then we look at the SBAC score from 5th grade. That is a piece of evidence for us. And then their 6th grade district benchmark tests. And they should have been taking that in the last couple of weeks. That's a test that's based on the standards that they've learned in their math class up to this point. These are all objective pieces. 6th grade math report card grade, that's a little subjective because some teachers will count homework or participation points. So that grade, even though a student may be getting an A, we want to see, can you apply it to these math problems? And so that's why that is our last weighted piece of evidence. Yeah?
You had a slide that showed all the requirements, not just math. Are you going to include that in the website?
Yeah, this is on the question was about
Back up.
right here.
That one.
Yeah, this is, that'll be on this presentation.
Okay.
You can look at that.
Just a question. Let me be right a bit loud. So you said that tests are from March and April, right? The 2-week window?
Yes, the math placement
Is that
test.
for every year, or is that only for the placement, the 6th grade?
The 6th grade math placement test is always in the spring, and then we kind of fit it in with when the SBAC testing starts, or when spring break is. So it's not exactly that window, but it's always about that time. They should have finished Unit 4 already, and so we've got time for them to review before they get to that point. We try and time it just so that they're not learning Unit 4 standards and then taking the placement test. All the way in the back there.
Yeah. The slide which says the test details, where it says like 20 questions each. So it's 20 questions per unit, or like how do you divide it?
20 questions for part 1, 20 questions for part 2. Can be any of the standards. So there's 2 parts to it. Part 1 is just traditional multiple choice, A, B, C, D, or E. Now they will have to work out the problems on scratch paper and then choose the best one. Then there's a second part that has 20 questions also. That's non-traditional. There are multiple answers that could be correct for that test. Yes?
Is the placement based on the per school basis, like a certain percentage of students per school, or what is the percentage that make it?
her question was, is placement a certain percentage of students per school? It is not. What we look at is we say, looking at this criteria, who meets the criteria? And we want kids to, kids will have a bad day, so we're not looking at all of them have to be perfect, but they have to show that they're mastering the math standards in at least 3 or 4 of the categories. If they have, they do poorly on their benchmark, but they do really well on these and the other things, then they're in. And we had a majority of our, not a majority, we have about 65% of our 6th grade students make it into the accelerated pathway. And our cutoff for the placement test is they need to be at least about 60% correct on that math placement test. So we're not looking at true mastery. We have a wider net to get kids into it rather than having kids being held out of it. Yeah.
The questions, what percentage would be word problems?
Can you answer that? Is it most of them? Yeah, pretty much all of them have some kind of word problem to it. Yes? Yes, you.
So you mentioned that you actually assuming that all children pass and become an accelerated, qualified for the accelerated program. Do you have a different way to say, we only allow certain people, or if any student pass, then yes?
That's a great question. Do we limit the students? We do not. It's if you meet the criteria, that's how many sections of math we will offer at the school. So some schools have a lot more sections and other schools don't have as many sections or not the same amount. But if the student meets the criteria, they are placed into the accelerated pathway. There's no limit to that.
Similar to the SBAC scores, do you have a kind of a chart that says this was the cutoff point, this is where your student figured?
So again, we tend to take nothing lower than 60% on the test. Again, if a student did not do as well on one part but did well on everything else, then the student is in. We kind of color code them and say, this is green, this is green, this is yellow, this is red, and you only get one red, meaning you only get one part that you didn't do well on.
So as far as this syllabus goes from units 1 through 4, nothing outside would be the part of test, correct?
No. Everything is on that, is in those standards in unit 1 through 4.
So you said that there are 2 sections, right? These sections will be there in every school, or like you are going to distribute these 2 programs into separate schools. For example, if you take a junior high, there will be 2 sections, one is accelerated, one is regular, or is it something that some schools will offer the accelerated, some schools will offer the regular?
Every school in our district has this pathway.
So 2 sections.
Let me get to it right here. Every single junior high in Fremont offers these 2 pathways to all the students. And every student will take the same test, and every student will take it within a 2-week window.
So I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So if the student, for some health reasons or whatever, missed that day at their school, that particular placement test, what are the alternates?
So if a student's sick, then as soon as they come back, we want them to take the test
At the school itself?
at their school itself. If a student is sick for a couple of weeks, as soon as they come back, we want them to take it. If a student is not in our district, when they move into the district, they will take it before they get to start the school year. We offer that test for new to the district enrolling students in June and also in August. So everybody going into junior high has to take this placement test.
I don't know if you answered the question. Like somebody asked about the weight of the different tests. Does each one of them has the same weight, or no?
Yeah. So the question was, are they all equally weighted, these criteria? And the answer is no, they're not. Again, the placement test we weight more highly, and then the SBAC and the mid-year assessment are more highly weighting.
So you said it's multiple choices. That means you don't need to show work at all, right?
Right. You don't need to show your work. You're probably going to have to work it out. And then they'll have scratch paper, and we collect that and we throw that away.
GATE students, in the past, like in Fremont, GATE students got automatic placement into the honors section, but now we don't have any honors. You call it as like accelerated program.
So we have the last of our honors math is right here at pre-calculus. We're going to keep that class. That class is a weighted class. It gets students some extra points in their grades when they're applying to college. GATE is not automatically in anymore. It doesn't necessarily align for being able to go deep and fast. So if they're honors or they're GATE, then that applies for English, that applies for science. It does not apply for math anymore. They still have to take this placement test.
Sorry, I maybe missed before. Usually what percentage of students gets in the accelerated program?
So we are getting about 65% of students in Fremont are moving into the accelerated from 6th grade. And then what we're hearing from our junior high and high school teachers is placement is working, that students are appropriately matched right now, that students aren't overwhelmed in junior high and they're not underwhelmed in junior high. And that when they get to the higher math classes, this becomes a pretty rigorous course right here. And so students, to be able to be in this level right here, they need to really know their math, and they're saying it's a good placement. We offered this course for the first time this year, and we had about 10% of students in that class came out of that class because it was too rigorous for them. It's less at the junior high. We have less students coming out of our accelerated in 7th and 8th grade. It's something around 5% come out. It's too much for them. They're better placed on the grade level pathway. So we're hearing from everybody, this is working, students are mastering it, and it's an appropriate match. You had a question?
Yeah, so we say that it's working. So can you tell me how long it's working and how long have you been using it in Fremont district?
Is it 3 years or 4 years?
3 years.
3 years this has been our math pathway. So now we're really starting to see kids who've gone through it. And they are, when we first moved into the Common Core math standards that asked students to be able to really explain their thinking and make sense of their math problems, it was a struggle for a lot of us because we hadn't done it that way before. And now we're seeing that kids are able to think on that deep level. They can make sense of math problems. They're doing much better with it. Yes?
So in the high school, there are some dependency on which block you have for taking other honors, because like chemistry honors requires algebra to trig. So is there a chart that kind of points saying that what would be the impact if you take the normal route versus the accelerated route?
I do have that. It's not in this, but I can put it on our page. So our students, and it fits the way our science classes are. If a student is taking biology as a freshman or NGSS 1 as a freshman, then they can take chemistry from biology when they're taking the Algebra 2 trig. And then if they're in the NGSS, then they won't get to that Algebra 2, they won't have to take that until later. But I can show you the alignment. We've set them up together. So actually, if they're not accelerated, here's the bottom line. There's only one class. If a student was on this pathway, right here, there's only one class that they could never take, and that would be AP Physics C. They could take AP Physics 1, they could take AP Bio, they could take AP Chem, all the sciences except AP Physics C, which makes sense because we want them to have they should have AP Calculus to take that class. So the alignment really works. Students who are in the grade level path, they're not shut out of any classes except for that AP Physics C class. Yes?
The previous slide. So you need a B, actually so you need a B minus to go down the lower path. What happens? So it doesn't matter how well they do on the 7th grade?
So in order to stay from any year, from any of these accelerated classes, from 7th grade if they're in the accelerated, to keep on that in 8th grade, to keep on it and go in 9th grade, if they're in it in high school, to keep going, they have to have a B minus. Now we think that that is probably too easy, or too low, not too easy, that students really should be doing better than a B minus to stay in these classes. We do not want C's in this class in high school. So we want it to be an appropriate placement where they're getting A's, they're doing well in it. But that, right now, that's the criteria to continue, is you have to have a B minus. And even if at the 1 semester mark, a student gets a C, then they either come out at the semester or they can stay, but the next year they go to the grade level course. We don't want C's in our math classes if they're in accelerated. Yes?
Yeah, actually, my son just moved in last year, so he doesn't have the SPC 5th grade math school.
That's
so,
okay.
Yeah, so what's the impact for that one?
Yeah, so if a student is not, wasn't in the public school system, they won't have taken the SBAC test probably. That's okay. We just don't look at that. If they've taken another test, standardized test, then we do ask for that because that just gives us more information. But they don't have to have that test. A lot of times kids coming from out of state don't have all that criteria. Yes?
Can a student take just 3 years of math and algebra to trigonometry in 11th grade, yes, and then in the 12th grade not really take math? Would that kid be able to apply for STEM, engineering, and UCs, or is that not?
So if a student, this is a great question. Her question was, can a student stop taking math basically in their junior year and then apply to STEM programs? It's going to be hard for them to get in. They're going to want to see, STEM is going to ask for a math background. So a student really needs to have the math classes. And the other point with that is that a student who gets, right here, if the student takes AP Calculus or Calculus their junior year and then takes a break and doesn't take any, their college is going to make them retake that calculus. They've got to keep taking that calculus. And if they were, we have AP Statistics for senior year, or they can go to Ohlone College and take multivariable calculus or linear algebra, and then they won't have to repeat this. But if they've got that gap, they'll have to repeat it. So that race that Hillary was talking about, we have this kind of thing, you got to go fast, you got to go fast. It doesn't do kids a lot of help if they don't take that class and they end up repeating. So, and we like this pathway here too, where you get to pre-calculus because you get that honors weighting, and then you take AP Calculus as a senior, and then you go into your college program and you don't have to repeat your calculus. So we want it to be the right match for your student, but this is a great pathway right here too. There's advantages to that. You can email any one of us and we will get back to you within a day if you have questions about placement or anything related to this. Yes?
Question about the placement test. I mean, how much is it designed to test if they understood concepts versus being quick, faster, solving problems? I mean, is it more a speed test or really having understood concepts?
It's more of, do they understand the concepts? So 20 questions in 45 minutes, so they should know what they're doing with those problems. Most kids will finish it. If they understand it, they'll finish it. Doesn't mean that they get them all right, but that they know what they're doing. So it's not designed for just speed, although they are going faster in their class. So they should be able to have learned their math and be able to apply it without a lot of difficulty. Yes?
When will be the upcoming 6th grade placement test? Is there any sample tests?
There are no sample tests. We don't have any samples of it. What we suggest is that you look through the springboard, you go through some of those more complex problems, that they're able to do those, that they understand the math. We don't want them going to a tutor beforehand or really stressing out over this, because if they're not really able to do it and be happy with it and be comfortable with it, then they're going to be overwhelmed in the class. Yes, all the way in the back.
On the same slide here, what's the minimum grade level to maintain to keep on that accelerator pathway all the way to the end?
B minus. B minus is what they have to stay in it. There was another question over here. Yeah.
So I think you might have answered again. What would happen in that gap? 1st grade underneath of the accelerated, there will be a gap. After 11th grade, AP Calculus.
They can take AP Statistics, or they can go up to Ohlone College and take multivariable or linear algebra or something else along those lines.
You said 45 minutes per section for the placement test?
Yeah, 45 minutes for each part. Part 1, 45 minutes, break. Part 2, 45 minutes. Some schools will do it on 2 days.
So in the part 2, you said there will be multiple options and multiple answers can be right.
Yes.
Should they be able to get all the right answers, or what are you looking for?
They have to get all of them. This is where, this part right here is where you really understand whether students know the standard well and they know what they're doing. They have to get all of the answers to get it right. And that's similar to the SBAC test, has questions just like that.
Is it the same question everywhere, or you have different questions added for each school?
The test is identical for every school.
Same question.
Same questions.
Who corrects the test?
We do.
Comes back to-
So they send the whole packet to us and then we scan them. And then you'll get your letter, as Diana told you, at the end of May. Then we'll send out a letter and it will say what your student's placement is.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned both part 1 and part 2 should be completely right. Every question should be right.
No, they don't have to get 100% to get it right. But on these questions right here, the non-traditional multiple choice, his question was, do they have to get, so 2 things. They don't have to get 100% on part 1 and part 2 in order to qualify. It's something like nothing less than 60% on both parts. For the non-traditional multiple choice, they have to get every answer correct. If it wants 3 answers for that question, they have to get all 3 in order to get that question right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you said in 12th grade, they can go to like a Ohlone College and do calculus multivariate. So if they do that, will that go into their transcripts and GPA, all those things?
It does go onto their transcript. I don't know that it goes to their GPA.
Not for Fremont Unified, but they
Fremont
can.
doesn't do that.
Fremont doesn't do that.
Fremont doesn't do any of the APs.
Any of the-
It
yeah.
has to be within the
The
school.
multivariable ones.
Yeah.
So this placement test will be at the same
You can
level of
place it
SBAC
along with
testing,
it.
or it is more difficult?
It's
It's more
submitted,
difficult,
but like it's
yeah.
up to the colleges
So
to
her
decide.
question, is the placement test on the same level as the SBAC test? And the answer is no. The SBAC test has some questions that are at a lower level of rigor, and this is asking, almost all the questions are at a higher level of rigor. So it's more challenging.
Will we be able to see the questions and their answers?
You will not be able to see the questions or the answers. You can call me and I will give you an idea of how placement was done for your student. But we don't release the test. We'd get a lot of money. We could sell it on eBay.
Is it computerized test?
It's graded computerized. We scan it, so it'll be on a multiple choice.
Can they go back to do the question if they want to do it again?
Yeah, you mean one time? They can take the test once. They don't get to take it again.
No, go back to check.
Yeah, they've got time. It's not on the computer. It's paper and pencil, the test is, and then we scan it, the test through a computer to get the grade. But it's not given on the computer. It's paper and pencil test. Yes?
So if they mark it wrong and they realize it's wrong, how do they correct it?
They can erase it. It's not on the computer. It's paper pencil. So if I mark B,
It has to be pencil, I have to be careful to make sure that they mark the right thing so that it's the reader, because there could be mistakes in how they write it and what the computer reads, right?
it's a bubble. And so as long as they erase it, and then we check it, we go through and check it to make sure that if something's erased, it's erased well. It takes a lot of time, but yeah.
Scan the scans, yes.
Yeah. It's okay. The Scantron is not that super sensitive.
So we will only get the result pass or fail, or will also come to the percentage the student?
Pass or fail, that's what we tell you. We give you, we actually don't even say pass or fail. You'll get a letter, your student is in the accelerated, your student is not. If you really feel that something was wrong, then you can call and we can talk about it and I'll let you know what it was.
The binary results, right?
Pardon me?
The binary results.
Right. Yes, accelerated.
So part 1 and part 2 are also tests on unit 1 to 4, or just 1 to 4 on part 1?
Part 1 and Part 2 are all the standards that are covered in Unit 1 through 4. Again, it's not the springboard, it's the standards, the math standards themselves. Yes.
You had mentioned about your contact details to reach out, so is that available somewhere on the website or?
Yes, if you go to that math homepage, then all of our names and all of our email addresses are there. Yeah. Yes.
You just mentioned it's not the springboard, it's the standard, but those are the subjects or the concepts which are covered in that springboard book 1 to 4, right?
That's right. The standards are being taught in those units, but we're not testing springboard type questions. So, yeah. Yes.
So when you take AP Cal in 11th grade, do you just have the option of AP Stats, or can you take AP Stats and or AP computer Science?
You can take AP Computer Science as well.
And that qualifies as a math?
I can't be certain about that. You should email me. Her question is, if you are to take AP Calculus as a, right here, her question is, if you took Computer Science here, would that count towards not having to repeat the calculus? And I actually don't know the answer to that, but if you email me, then I'll find out. Yes?
Are these AP courses that you are talking about available in all high schools, like computer science or statistics?
I think that I know that AP Calculus is everywhere. I'm not certain about AP Computer Science. I expect by the time your students get there that it will be. We're building up that program right now, our Computer Science.
Statistics?
Statistics is available at every high school. AP Calculus, AP Statistics, they're available at all the high schools in Fremont. AP Computer Science is not, but it will be. We're building that course up now. By the time your 6th graders get there. Yes?
Well, you just said it's not springboard, it's math standard unit 1 through 4. So what is the math standard that we do?
The math standards that the students are learning in that course, in those units, the ones that are being taught at that time, that's what we're testing. So just a couple more questions, and then if you have something, you can email us. Yes?
Okay, so student get on part 1 90% and part 2 got 40%, as opposed to another get 65 and 65 on each. Eventually 65% for both of them. Will that be a difference?
No.
Both will be qualified.
So the question was, what if they did really bad on one part and they got 40% and they got 90% on the other? Again, like I said, we allow for that. We look at all the pieces together and say, okay, they did well here, they did well here, they did well here. Oh, they had a bad test, that's okay, they're in.
Bad day.
Bad day kind of thing, right? Okay, so you'll be our last question.
Summer Bridge course, you said Centerville, that's for the whole district?
The whole district, Summer Bridge will be offered at Centerville.
Monday to Thursday, all day?
Monday through Thursday from 4 hours.
I think for the accelerated path, I think I read somewhere that there is also a summer course that the kids in the accelerated path need to take. Is that true?
Okay, so the last question is about summer geometry. Did that go up?
Yeah.
It died. Summer geometry is a course that we offered one summer. I don't know that we're going to offer it again. It was for students right here. They took it in the summer so that when their 9th grade year, they went to this class. I don't know that we're going to offer it again. It is, this course is doable. And taking summer geometry for 6 hours a day for 6 weeks is not necessarily good for kids. So since we have a way for them to get here, it didn't help them get any faster here. They still got to AP Calculus by junior year. Okay? So you can email any of us, and thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate your commitment to your kids.